Namaste. Bonjour. Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame. Tapovan was a dream, and this dream, I would say almost a childhood dream, I started to develop first within me. An open university, a place somewhat like Gurukul, that is to say, ancient system of education, where there is knowledge, where there is an atmosphere, and where learned people come, teach, and share their experience. This dream I wanted to put into a Western atmosphere. Of course, I was inspired first by Gandhi, then by Tagore, then by the mother and Aurobindo of Pondicherry Ashram, and then by Yehudi Menuhin, the great musician of the 20th century. In 1982, when I was working in UNESCO in the field of education, though the building was something extraordinary, the people whom I met was also something extraordinary, but something within me used to tell me that create something which does not exist in the Western world. And then I took a leap and started a small center of yoga, Ayurveda, and Indian culture. And that has developed today as an open university here in Normandy with 25 acres of land, with more than 8,000 to 10,000 trees, a place to practice yoga, a place to practice Ayurveda, a place to go within oneself and find one's own path of wellness, of beauty, and inner peace. Thinking differently, refraining the problem. When you started Tapovan, what problem were you trying to address? How was your approach different from the conventional Western wellness or educational models? How do you integrate yoga, Ayurveda, and meditation not only as practice but as ways of reimagining how we live and learn? In your view, what is missing in how modern societies think about health, work, and inner growth? A complex set of questions. I will try to explain the Western attitude, or rather what we'll call it modern attitude, what we'll also call it a scientific education or scientific attitude, is always, in order to understand, we cut into pieces and we try to learn the snippets, but we forget the wholeness of the thing. If we want to study a human being, we just see the external side, and then we'll try to understand the heart, the lungs, the other organs. And then we have the great specialist of each organ. But somebody taking care of the heart will give them medicines which might spoil your kidneys, but that's not the problem for the heart specialist. In fact, the question of wholeness is missing. I would explain in another way also. That is to say, I look at each and every person in 360 degrees, and I try to see the person in the 24-hour schedule. Even if somebody comes to work with me, or somebody comes to study with me, it is not just 7 hours of work or 7 hours of study, but I try to see how the whole day, how the day and night the person is spending. That is to say, what is the lifestyle of 24 hours and what is the lifestyle of the totalness. And certainly, I take the image and inspiration of Ayurveda and yoga. From Ayurveda, I take 3 principles. Ahara, dietetics; Vihara, how we lead our life; and Manovyapara, what is our mental state. And from the yoga, I try to consider that the whole life is yoga, and therefore one needs to develop their lifestyle little bit or fully, in spirit at least, the Gurukul system. Thank you. Acting differently, context and adaptation. Tapovan has grown over decades while staying deeply rooted in Indian philosophy. How have you balanced tradition with adaptation to modern global audiences? What the role do rhythm, seasonality, or natural cycles play in the way Tapovan structures its programs? Could you share example of acting differently, decisions or practices where you chose depth, patience, or contextual sensitivity over speed or scale? A very complex questions. I'll try to reply in a different manner. I studied, first of all, in different atmospheres. In the beginning, in the Gandhian atmosphere, with my father who gave or who constructed the theory of 3H as demanded by Gandhiji, because Gandhiji wanted my father to develop a theory of education which was later on called the basic education according to Gandhi. It was of 3 H. H for the head, H for the heart, and H for the hands. So these 3 H, hands we work and we labor so that we can earn our livelihood. Gandhi wanted that everybody should spin. Then I got inspired by Tagore. Contrary to the French philosopher Descartes, who said, "Je pense donc je suis. I think, therefore I am." But Tagore said, "No, I vibrate with emotions. I vibrate with joy, with sadness. I vibrate with feelings. A human being is like an instrument of music. It can produce beautiful music, even if one is sad, even if one is happy. So let us try this vibrations. Tagore's human being is vibrating. Thirdly, the Ayurvedic principle of good health and the yogic concept of the 5 bodies, I considered that physical education or physical activities, and the best of the physical activities is yogasana and pranayama. Then we take care not only of the human body, but the human emotions, of the education for the 5 senses, and education of the mind, and then education of the inner being. So these things, that is right from the body, from the emotions, mind, and the inner being, inner psychic being, or the soul. If we can take care of all these things, our health remains good, our life remains good, and certainly we evolve, we progress inwardly towards happiness, towards peacefulness, and what I will call it, towards Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means the truth, Chit means the consciousness, and Ananda, the eternal bliss. Ça, c'est la 3e.
C'est bien, vous avez fait 4 minutes à chaque fois.
Tapovan has grown over decades while staying deeply rooted in Indian philosophy. How have you balanced traditions with adaptation to modern global audiences? What role do rhythms... Non, ça on a déjà lu, non?
Non, la question d'avant, c'était les problèmes que vous avez rencontrés et comment vous avez... Non, on a fait 3 fois là. Mais elles se ressemblent un peu, ces 2 questions.
Tapovan is more than a center. It feels like a living community. How do you build and sustain trust with students, teachers, and practitioners across cultures? What role does reciprocity, mutual care and exchange play in your work with people from such diverse backgrounds? How do you see relationships between teacher and student, between humans and nature, as central to transformation? Tapovan, for me, is something within each and every self. Whether one is a student, one is a teacher, one is a worker, one is an advisor, one a lecturer, or a specialist. Each one is a human being come upon earth to evolve and progress. Each one will progress with one's own speed. And Tapovan, as a physical place and space, would give an opportunity. Let us start with the concept of the workers who are with me. 80 to 90% of the workers with me are my students and friends. And that changes the attitude between the two, the relations. Secondly, I believe that everybody should be free to think freely, to act freely, and to work freely. So the first thing what I do, instead of having somebody on the payroll as an employed person, the person is an individual, what here in France we call it, auto-entrepreneur, that is the individual worker, like a plumber, like an electrician, who works, you call him, he works, he repairs your things, and he goes away. So similarly, each one working with me, we have a small contract for 1 week. Suppose somebody comes as a lecturer, we organize his lectures for 1 week, and the person goes away. And it is the person who makes a bill to me, and I would pay his bill for 1 week's work. One who comes as a yoga therapist or as a massage therapist also does the same thing. Comes, stays here for a week, and goes away. So there is an independence completely with the one who is working. Person may come, we fix up the program of the whole year, who is working at what time, how much time. Of course, it requires a great administrative work on the core team, the team which is the basic. But all the workers, even the chiefs or even the heads, they also have a very short time work with us. Perhaps one can repeat 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 10 weeks, 20 weeks or 30 weeks in a year. But that is limited to 35 weeks maximum or 40 weeks. But each one takes one's own time to work with us. Not only the physical liberty, but then as a student and as a human being, each one takes interest in the atmosphere, and not only the atmosphere, on the well-being of the earth. And the well-being of the earth means the garden, the vegetables, the fruit trees and the medicinal plants and such things help us to all. So each one takes interest in this, what we call it garden, or what we call it planetary garden, that we want the whole planet Earth should become a big garden. So this is the relation between two human beings, like between two trees or two plants, or a living being and a non-living being, a relation between the eternal energies of evolution and the inward inspiration. Thank you. Many Indian traditions positions women as carriers of wisdom and Shakti. How does Tapovan engage women as students, teachers, and leaders in its ecosystem? What changes have you observed in women's role in the wellness and yoga space, especially across India and Europe? Yeah, I'm a lover of this concept of Shakti. My business company is called Adi Shakti, Adya Shakti, Mother Durga, Mother Kali, Mother Saraswati, Maheshwari. So all the four great deities are my inner deities. Shakti, or in Egyptian culture, Isis or Isis, or even I would say in Christianity, the Mother Mary. In all cultures, somehow woman or the femininity has played a great role. Woman is the symbol of love, right? Starting from the motherly love, then a womanly love, then a deity or a goddess. So this is so important for a human being that we cannot imagine. For Tapovan, the women empowerment is omnipresent. 99.8% of the workers and students are women. In fact, we men are quite rare over here, but that does not mean that we do not give importance to men also. But with women, there is a greater receptivity, and the energy of the Oriental knowledge and practices were much better received by women than by men. People always ask me, why are there so many women in your classes or as the workers with you? I just said that it is the receptivity. It is not just limited to administrative or so-called common sense. With women, they have always said sixth sense. There is always an inspiration. There is always a heart energy in all what they do. And this is the stepping stone. This is the spring on which we can put a step and go forward into another dimension. To live a life here in France, in Paris, there is a saying, metro, boulot, dodo. That is it. Take a metro, then work, come back and sleep. Then in our Indian culture, we have also a saying that if you eat, if you drink, if you reproduce, means that even the animals do. So what does a human being need to do? So there is a saying in our Indian culture, Sahitya, Sangita, Kala. These are the things a human being needs in the beginning. And we will go beyond. With the practice of yoga, we will try to go within ourselves, not only practice asanas and have good health, that going beyond is the aim. And women are there to help us. Women are there to inspire us. And women are there just to spread the atmosphere of love, atmosphere of joy and harmony with that beauty and with their inner understanding. World views and wisdom transmission. You have spent decades bringing Indian knowledge system to the world. What has been most challenging about translating India's worldview into a global context? How do you ensure the essence of Dharma, Seva and Shakti is not diluted when presented abroad? If you had to describe Tapovan's worldview, what would it be in the 1 or 2 sentences? Tapovan wants to give an example. Tapovan wants to work. Tapovan invites each one and everyone to experience. The great musician Yehudi Menuhin, when he came here and he spent some time receiving Ayurvedic treatments for 1 week, though he was solicited once or twice by even the Prime Minister of England, who invited him for a dinner, but he just sent a word that he is in a peaceful atmosphere of Tapovan, Normandy, and he would like to continue this experience for 1 week. So Tapovan's aim at an individual level is to make person feel the inner peace, if at all it is possible. Now, Indian knowledge and the concept of dharma, seva, and shakti. Just we try to be sincere, try to be more and more open, try to be in harmony within and without. For the Western mind, they are much more interested first in the health and well-being and hygiene, then relation to so-called scientific approach. So I tried the philosophy of yoga, the studies of yoga, to make it more and more scientific. Similarly, the approach of Ayurveda, with many good friends of allopathy, homeopathy, acupuncture, and other different medicines, to give a holistic approach, and where Ayurveda can help. Even with the medical universities, the approach towards pain, how to diminish pain with natural procedures. But my own personal view is the progress inward, taking care of a human being in its totality, and yoga and Ayurveda, along with art and music, try to develop the soft power of music, art, dance, theatre, the soft power of Ayurveda to create a great good health with the concept of proper dietetics, ahara, proper lifestyle, what to do and what not to do, what to wear and what not to wear, what to think and what not to think. That is called manovyapara. So, mind, body, and emotions, along with the soul, which is our driving force. So, we go towards our inner being, and who is the real master of ourselves. But always, as we are born, we have to work. So, in each action, in each karma, kaushalam should be developed. That is to say, a sort of perfection and sort of fullness of knowledge. If you have to work as a plumber, let your plumbing work should be complete and perfect. If you have to wash dishes, let the dishes be proper. And if you have to cook, let that food be delicious, be of good health, which not only good in taste, but good for the mind, body, and soul. So, the human being in its totality is most important for each and every one of us. And for that, the health of the earth is equally important. So let the earth, the Mother Earth, should be there with us to help us, and we should be there praying and having devotion towards that earth, whether it is east or whether it is west, whether it is north or south. The global concentration should be towards inner peace, shanti, inner joy, and inner harmony. Because if there is inwardly harmony, joy, and peace, in the external world also, that beauty, that harmony, that joy would come out. Namaste. What do you see as the next frontier for Tapovan? How do you imagine Tapovan contributing to global conversations on well-being, work, and sustaining living? What invisible forces do you hope future generations will carry forward from India's wisdom traditions? Each of the questions will require a big answer. But let us say Tapovan's contribution is a simple contribution to the world. That is to say, world does require a military power, world does require an economic power of finance, but world does require a soft power of art, music. World does require the power of yoga and Ayurveda. World does require the soft power of our inner strength and inner peace. So this would be the contribution of this development of the soft power, where there is nothing like a war against another culture. A musician from the West can sit down with a musician of the East. I've seen with my own eyes Yehudi Menuhin and Ravi Shankar, two great musicians. They sat together and they created different musics. Similarly, this East and West, as far as the art is concerned, as far as the other creation is concerned, are going together towards the same infinity, towards the same creativity which is within every soul. Indian wisdom is a deep wisdom. One needs to go deep in Indian culture, but at the same time, one needs to go towards the great teachers of India. The first teachers are starting with the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Puranas, the Mahabharats and Ramayana, Upanishads, and all these things to be seen in the light of the modern world, the world of satellites, the world of fast trains and aeroplanes, the world of lights and glamour and other things. So in this modern world, how this ancient system of knowledge which can be introduced, which could be practiced, which could be lived, that is the challenge, and that is what we are trying to achieve. And to achieve this, one needs to just leave our ego, leave our smallness, and just open towards the vastness, the opening of one's own self is the first and foremost action which could we take. Let us hope that we together with humility can work together for a better world. Namaste. Thank you.